This new report makes the shrewd point that the plotters didn't think sending around elector fraud would magically deliver Trump a win. Having a bunch of made-up fraudulent elector slates, though, could drive the chaos of the certification. Well, this is all weeks before Trump was pushing the January 6th gathering. Here's Ruddy describing the trick, that if there was enough confusion about the electors, say dueling slates, etc., it might turn January 6th into a catfight in Congress with Pence presiding. Now, the only reason we know this is the committee got Mark Meadows' emails. Indeed, a new footnote in the new report shows that damning memo there, you see at the bottom of your screen, is just from one of the emails that was forwarded. The investigation also uncovered the lengths Trump's team went to enact this. And that goes from Giuliani pressing the officials and meetings and frantic voicemails to more public and sometimes physical pressure.
What are we going to do?
Mr. Speaker, this is Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellis. We're calling you together because we'd like to discuss, obviously, the election.
What can you and I do to a state legislature besides tell them? Although we should not do that.
I understand that you don't want to talk to me now.
My recollection, he said, we've got lots of theories, we just don't have the evidence.
I just want to bring some facts to your attention.
Public pressure on state officials often grew dangerous in the lead up to January 6th.
That was the plotting and the muscle. Now, most of this was not actually known in the beginning of 2020's plots, which was around that November-December period where they date it to its inception. Some of this came out in the committee hearings. These details now come out in today's new evidence, plus independent reporting and other accounts of the plot. Now, on MSNBC, we've been documenting about 8 schemes to overthrow the election. What I'm telling you right now in this special report involves 3 of them. The red arrows there on the bottom, overturning the votes by Congress, Pence, or sabotaging January 6th itself. We've also reported how these plots intersected in an earlier special report we did here where we went through all this. Now, I mentioned on that report day, because some of this is coming full circle, the goal of the plots wasn't just to sabotage the 6th or tee up the elector slates. That would be rejected by virtually any court. The aim was to exploit a rule where if a presidential race is genuinely contested and neither candidate has a majority, then before anything reaches the courts, the House resolves the race with its own unusual vote. Now, I want to tell you, that's supposed to be the last resort for a genuine toss-up. The House vote, though, if it happens, is tallied 1 vote per state under the arcane rules. I wrote this out in our coup conspiracy breakdown, and here's the point. In 2020, Republicans controlled the 27-state margin in House delegations, so a party line vote would go to Trump in 2020 had they forced it. Now, that's how I described it in this coup conspiracy breakdown with Michael mentioned tonight. I actually wrote that, of course, before the report dropped last night. Now, stay with me, because this is where we're going. Here's how this final January 6th report describes the same endgame. The Trump plot to return the Electoral College votes of the states, declare there was no majority, and create an alleged contingent election under the 12th Amendment. Then the House chooses the president not by 1 member, 1 vote, but by 1 state, 1 vote under the 12th Amendment. Reading from the new report, quote, Trump's strategists emphasized the GOP had a 27-state margin in congressional delegations. Boom. It may sound like legalese, and why are we getting to the 12th Amendment? That is part of what the nation needs to absorb. We reported earlier on this program. The committee is now putting it in writing for history. And I'm going to tell you why right now. And it's bad for Trump. It shows there was this arguably written path to overturn the election if you forced it into that House vote in a way that might work. Now, if you're thinking you haven't heard a lot about this before and it sounds big, and we've been talking about January 6th for a long time, and the guy on the news just told you We wrote it down before in our coverage, and the committee report today says the same thing about the 27 state votes, which I admit is a very weird, arcane piece of constitutional scholarship that could be exploited. Of course, it's supposed to only be for a contested race. I've told you they were going to fake the chaos, claim it was contested. Why haven't we heard more about this? There's actually a reason, and it's simple, and it's classic, and it goes beyond politics.
Welcome to Fight Club. The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
The first rule of Coup Club is you don't talk about it. Like many secret or illicit endeavors which can fall apart when exposed by participants, the second rule of January 6th is Trump didn't talk about his plan to go to the Capitol. And I mention that not in jest, but just as a memorable way to understand Coup Club. Because Trump never wanted anyone outside of his circle to know that he was going to go to the Capitol. That's a glaring omission for a man who talks up and promotes everything he does and a lot of things he doesn't do. But he never talked about going to the Capitol. He never broke that rule of Coup Club because it's incriminating. It would destroy the element of surprise. The star witness Cassie Hutchinson memorably recounted all this, and the report shows Coup Club did keep their endgame secret. It appears most Trump fans who risked it all to storm the Capitol didn't know this other thing that I'm telling you about and that we've documented this year, that the Republicans had a 27-state margin in House delegations. So if they faked a crisis to drive to that type of vote, they would have arguably been able to win that contested election vote. The new report busts Trump's strategists for privately plotting that same idea in Coup Club, that they had that 27-state margin. That's why the coup plotters didn't talk about it in public. And afterwards, there have been some reformers who've been concerned that talking about this too much would then maybe launder, normalize it, or even alert other bad actors to follow the MAGA playbook. And that's in the news today because it's a concern that drove a pretty quiet approach to Congress passing this new law to coup-proof its January 6th process. Now, I know there's a lot going on. I know we're going to the holidays, but holidays are also a deadline for Congress, so it's not exactly a coincidence. They passed that today in the House after getting 18 Republican senators on board this week to coup-proof the process. Now, the new law is all about these bloodless coups, not storming the Capitol. It might not have won without the dogged work of this committee investigation. So it is a type of a breakthrough. And then there's the work left to be done, according to this committee, which refers these co-conspirators for indictment, arguing that without accountability or consequences, they, the coup plotters in Coup Club, and the nation might take the logical lesson that the bloodless part of the coup was not a big deal. It just failed. And that risks turning a failed coup into a practice session for next time. And in that sense, the committee is finishing its work with this exhaustive, meticulous pile of evidence and handing it to Attorney General Garland, literally, because the DOJ and the special counsel has been starting to take the files this week, take what we got today and its supporting materials. This committee is basically saying to DOJ, don't you see what's here? Yes, Lady Justice is supposed to be blind because she personifies a judge weighing evidence, blindfolded without fear or favor of the judgments of those people involved. But let me say this clearly on a day like today. Let me say it to Merrick Garland. You, Mr. Attorney General, are supposed to be able to see, to lead the prosecutors who actually put the evidence on Lady Justice's scale. And you need to see the facts to do that. And if the Attorney General can't see these facts in the light of day, then Lady Justice may never get her turn to even judge these plotters exposed by these facts who would have ended democracy and the rule of law as we know it. The path is complicated. I showed some of the aspects that are so convoluted and secretive, they're not even often discussed in open company. But the bottom line is simple. Are you blind to the facts that have emerged?